This is Cold Start.
All right, this is the 2019 Ferrari 488 Pista. Pista is Italian for track, but my voice recognition thinks it's pizza every single time I say it. We're going on this drive here through Lucas Valley in Marin County on our way back to Sonoma Raceway. Share with you the sights and sounds, well, at least the sounds of this car. You know, this car does things without drama, which is a little surprising.
Yeah, you think Italian, right? You think romance, you think high tempers. And that's kind of what Ferrari usually embodied, was these dramatic, tempered vehicles.
Yeah, a little spicy, you know? And it's got a great sound on the startup, no question. But from there, everything's just kind of smooth and linear. And, you know, it doesn't have that kick in the back feeling when you shift gears. Now, we are in the sport mode. I guess if we turned it into track mode or something like that, we might have a little different performance. Maybe we'll do that along our way. But here, just kind of smoothly going around the road, you know, it's just a cruiser. It's a GT car.
Which is interesting because, so the Ferrari 488, right, is its standard variant, but we're in the Pista, which for Ferrari, what does that really represent?
I guess they're calling this their track car, which is to say, it's not a race car, it's not a Ferrari challenge car that's purpose designed to race in their series, but it's the most track-oriented of their models that they delivered, the 488 series, right? There was the base model, the 488 GTB. Then they always come out with a convertible edition later, and then they came out with this one as sort of a special edition that was only available to certain people, and it was supposed to be the most track-focused. I think it gives it a fair bit more power. It rates in somewhere over 700 horsepower. I want to say about 715 or so. And inside the car, it's pretty spare, right? This has a carbon fiber package, so it's got not even floor mats in the thing. It's just
got metal floors.
Metal floors. Really nicely appointed, though. I mean, Alcantara and leather everywhere. It's still a Ferrari. You're getting the luxurious experience. But it's a little lighter weight. It's got that crazy scoop in the front, so it effectively has a front wing. There's this intake that dives down from the front hood and intersects the front bumper from the hood in a way that it's very unusual. The first time I saw it, I thought it didn't look good, but it's really grown on me. And over time, as I appreciate the function of it, it really helps keep the front end of the car planted at speed.
I really like the styling of the 488. So this came after the 458, correct?
That's right. Yeah, the 458 was the predecessor.
And that one was a naturally aspirated V8. Now on this one, twin turbo?
Twin turbo V8.
Which, it's a totally different experience. Like the 458, that's a screamer, right? That's where, you know, you put an exhaust system on it, it'll sound similar to the V8 F1 cars of their era. Where this one, like you're talking about, it's a little bit more muted in regards to its tone and sound.
Yeah, the 458 was famous for that sound. The model, the 458, the Speciale that came out, was the one that seems to be most sought after these days. And then there's a special version of that, because that's just what Ferrari does, called the Speciale Aperta, which is just what they're calling their fancy convertibles. But oh, what an experience being in that with the top down and being able to hear what's going on right behind you with the mid-engine. This car, it sounds good, but it's not as dramatic as you'd expect, as we said. And given that it's a twin turbo, I want to hear some wastegate and blow-off sounds. I want to know what's going on behind me. I can see the engine through this plexiglass plate behind me and through the rear deck lid, but it's not, like I said, it's just not dramatic. It's more of an elegant ride, if I had to call it anything. It handles well. The steering's not tight. It's maybe a little bit more stiff than you'd expect from a car like this, but nowhere near as stiff as even, say, the BMW M5 that we were out just driving. Nowhere near as stiff as any of the Porsches that are in the series that we've talked about so far. It's about the design and the function that it's designed to do. I mean, it's certainly capable of going fast in a straight line, and it handles well around the turns, but I don't know. There's just something about it that seems like they maybe slightly missed the mark.
From outside looking in, I think that the 488 is probably the most gorgeous styled of this. I guess this would be the mid-range Ferrari, right? It's not an entry-level Ferrari, which they don't like to call their cheaper cars entry-level. But this also isn't like the top of the heap in regards to Ferraris. It's kind of like the middle child, right?
Yeah, this was 2019, so several years after the LaFerrari came out, right? They had the TDF F12, which was considered to be maybe like a sleeper car. It came out as a special thing, and it just jumped in price and appreciation as soon as it came out because people thought it just looked the business. The F12 as a front engine car, you think like, well, maybe the handling characteristics won't be as good, but they really did the styling right and the sound right on that car, so that one was really sought out. So this one was sort of, yeah, more middle of the range, if you could call it that. Certainly above those entry level, again, they don't like to use that term, but the Portofino, the California, now the Roma.
Right.
This is higher up in the line than that, but it's not their, top of the line, the Competizione and these new models that they come out with, the super fast, the 812. And now they're on to the next generation beyond that with the SF90. But, I'd take this over an SF90 any day of the week.
Oh, 100%. And I think if we look at the lineage coming up to the 488 within Ferrari, you'd consider like the 360 was within this category. Then there was the 430, then the 458, which was the predecessor, the 488, which we're in. And then those newer vehicles, I just don't think that they have that same sort of feel. Ferraris are getting faster, yes. The 488, the car that we're in, is faster than a 458, absolutely. But it's kind of starting to lose that drama. It's losing, that Ferrari factor that was just so iconic of just that overall experience, noise, driver feel, things of that nature, where it's not just numbers on paper, numbers on a racetrack. It's just the feeling that it gives you. I think that the 488, the Pista, this was kind of like the last good mid-range Ferrari before they started going hybrid, electric, all this additional technology. You could even argue that the 458 was better just because it didn't have turbos. It had the better sound. But I think there's something to be added with the turbos. I know I talked about back when we were talking about the BMW M theory that everything went wrong when BMW put turbos on their M cars. You can kind of start to argue that same sort of thing with Ferrari, that when they started relying on turbos so heavily to supplement power, and now it's hybrid systems, they've really started to lose their way.
Yeah, something about this car too, I don't want to sound down on it, I'm going to talk about some really good things here in a minute, but when you're just starting out getting off the line, you really have to give it a ton of accelerator. You got to like stomp the throttle to get it to go. There's sort of this like hesitation that you get when you first start to roll. And in a way, it feels like they're just trying to mask the turbo lag down low. It's a weird feeling. It's a sense that the car's not going, and when you start getting into the rolling, it almost lurches. So it makes it really hard to manage in a tight turnaround or in a place where you just want to, drive through a parking lot or something like that. You're either on it and going, or you're sort of lurching.
I think that's also part of their like clutch system. So the way that they do their transmissions, it like takes a little bit of throttle for it to like engage that clutch to then make the car move, which, like, talking about the transmission on this, it's not, as I'm hearing you downshift and upshift, it's not like the dual clutches of the German sports cars like Porsches and things like that. It's not this like rapid, crisp shift. It is quick, right? But it's not like that jamming, snapping sensation that you get out of some other sports cars.
Yeah, it's not sudden. There's definitely that feeling of a dual clutch where there's some overlap between the gears, and it smooths it out. And again, I think this is where the luxury quality and the elegance of Ferrari they try to stick to as part of their aesthetic comes in. They don't want it to be too harsh of a ride, but here we are calling this car the track car. Well, maybe we need to go into track mode and see what the transmission does in that mode.
Right. I mean, it's the duality of this vehicle where, like, yeah, Ferrari is elegant. Their sports cars are elegant, but then also we're in the Pista, we're in the track variant. I think the perfect illustration of what you're talking about, of this mixture between track sports car focused and Ferrari elegance, is down in the footwell, down next to my feet over here, is a fire extinguisher. Not only just a fire extinguisher, it is wrapped in Alcantara with very nice Ferrari stitching fire extinguisher. So I think that's a perfect representation of this car, where it's like, yes, it's sporty, it's got the carbon fiber, it's got the stripped out interior, but it also wants to be elegant. It wants to be the show star.
Yeah, there's the practicality in mind. I guess this is where the track model comes in. There's no glove box. There's just a net behind the seats. There is a fair little bit of a ledge behind the seats where you can, keep a bag or a laptop case or something like that. But on the floor is this fire extinguisher. It's in your way, and as much as it's lovely and it's wrapping in Alcantara, there are these two big gnarly clips on the side of it. And they could get your ankle pretty easily in there, so it's something you got to watch out for. Now, the acceleration in this car, I have to say, it's so smooth and linear. It's almost hard to tell how you're accelerating at the time. The numbers just go up so quickly on the speedometer. When you get on the throttle, the acceleration is fairly linear, and it's smooth and without drama. And if you look down at the speedometer, before you know it, you're well into digits that are extremely antisocial. So you got to be careful with it. But it's something about the pull of this car that is intoxicating and attractive. It has power in reserve. It makes it feel like it's not even giving you everything until you really get on the car, you really stomp on the gas. There's other cars, you can be 3/4 the way down the throttle, and that's effectively the power delivery. It doesn't make a huge difference between that and absolutely full throttle. And the power band is pretty wide feeling. Again, this is one of those things where I think they're doing some tricks with the way the power comes on, the way the turbos are managed, the way the acceleration kind of feels to you. Again, a lot of this car is about feel, not necessarily the absolute highest possible performance.
Yeah, wasn't it Enzo Ferrari that said that his goal was any driver that got into one of his cars and got on the power, that he'd want them to shit themselves?
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. And in the Enzo, when that thing came out, I'll bet that was the case. In this case, I don't know, there's a lot of Alcantara. Maybe you wouldn't want to ruin it, so they had to take that down a little bit. But make no mistake, this is a fast car.
This is super powerful.
Yeah, it gets to the point where you get on the gas and you're almost surprised by how quickly you're getting up to speed. It is 700 plus horsepower. I'd say it's the closest comparable to the GT2 RS that I've driven in terms of off the line speed. And then I might argue that in one of those, 30 to 130 type of measurements, this car would beat the GT2 RS. I think the GT2 RS is much quicker off the line, especially if you do the launch control thing. It's got better grip and better downforce. But this car just has that continuous pull. It's almost like, seems very appropriate for where we're driving. It's almost like you say, let's use the force, Luke, as we pass Skywalker Ranch here in Lucas Valley.
I love this section of this road here. It's the tall redwoods surrounding us, the nice shade on the road going in and out of shade to sunshine back into the shade. It's just absolutely gorgeous.
It's one of those things that makes Northern California such an iconic place for driving a car. So many car commercials are filmed in places like this. The play of light and shadow, the nature all around you, you see it, the twists in the road, the undulations, and somehow this is smooth pavement. They must have fixed this up pretty recently.
And it's not too bad doing it in a Ferrari. I mean, I know we're being very critical of the Pista, but this is a nice place to be. I do like the seats. I think that they do have enough side bolstering to them to kind of hold you in. Like, I don't feel like I'm being tossed around too much here in the passenger seat. And I do like the accents of the carbon and the Alcantara. I think that they have a good contrast. It makes it feel very sporty. This feels like a special car, for sure.
Yeah, they have this, again, this way of interposing the hard surfaces, the carbon all around you, the stiff nature of the car, to having some compliance. Everything is soft or nice to touch. The stitching looks amazing. They spent a lot of time on that, obviously. Visibility out the rear view is not great. There's definitely some blind spots on this car. The B pillars are pretty thick, or those C pillars. I don't even know how it would be on a car like this, but I think it's that contradiction in some ways that makes it Ferrari what Ferrari is, because Ferraris aren't all one thing. They really rarely are. I think they have that quality of there's things that make you feel passionate about the car and inspired about the car, and then there's things that you put up with because you say it's a Ferrari. The fire extinguishers in here because of the history. I mean, it used to be a joke that you'd see these cars on the side of the road, and it's probably because they're going to catch on fire. Now, this is way more reliable than that. That's sort of a problem of the past, but it helps you remember that. It keeps some of the level of the feeling of danger, like something might go wrong in this car. So you better be careful putting all that power down and using it to the fullest. I'd also say that the look of this car is sort of fitting to what it does. This one happens to have the two big racing stripes down the middle. This is a black car with the gray colored racing stripes. I've never been a big racing stripes guy, but somehow it really just integrates well with the look of this car. And there's some nice visual cues. When you look out the rear view, you see that little wing that sticks up in the back, and you see the racing stripes continue all the way through. Again, the styling, the design, the Italians seem to get that right every single time.
It's kind of like subtle elegance. Like if we compared this to the GT2 RS, which I feel like same generation of those two cars coming out, same sort of power delivery, same kind of general marketplace for both those vehicles. But the GT2 has the massive wing on the back of it, right?
That's
it's
right.
A little bit more flamboyant in that aspect of being quote unquote boy racer. We're here in the Pista, like you're saying, that redesign on the rear end, it's elegant. There is a little bit more of a wing, spoiler, whatever you want to call it, but it's so well integrated into the body lines, you don't really notice it.
Yeah, it's just sort of there. On the dash, there's a little light that comes on with a picture of a wing flap that says DRS, like the drag reduction system from Formula One. So this is Ferrari having a little bit of fun and maybe overstating what that thing actually is, because it's not an active wing that you can see, but there are some ducts and flaps that do move around in the car. They're just not visible to you. I think that's a missed opportunity. So many other cars, think about the McLarens with the P1 with the giant air brake that comes up with your under heavy braking, and the rear wing lifts to help you with that downforce for deceleration. I think they could have done something like that with this car.
Yeah, that system is pretty cool that they have flaps that can redirect the air of where it's going underneath the vehicle and creating either more downforce or removing downforce, because creating downforce creates drag. So say if you're cruising on the highway, the DRS system reduces that drag, gives you a little better fuel economy. I don't think you're too focused on that when you're in a Ferrari.
Not at all. You're wanting to pull some gratuitous downshifts. You're wanting to listen to the note of the engine, which is muted, but good, right? I won't complain about that.
It's still there, and I mean, it's right behind our heads. You might not be able to see out of the back very well, but you can see that engine pretty nicely from the inside.
And if you're really careful, you can get a little bit of a burble, right? You just got to get into that right part of the range, and just a little bit of accelerator, a little bit of throttle input.
Just cracking that throttle.
Just barely there. So we have a little bit of straightaway ahead. Should we put it into track mode? I think we should.
See if that changes anything.
Okay, or I'm sorry, race mode. It didn't get any louder. Let's try some shifting. Okay, that feels a little crisper.
A little bit quicker.
Still not kicking you in the back kind of downshifts, but they sure sound good. I feel like I'm complaining a lot about this car. I mean, it is a pretty excellent experience all around. There's a reason that this came into the fleet.
It's pretty rad. Now, what was the story of getting into or wanting to get into a Pista?
I never liked the whole Ferrari ethos of you have to be this tall to ride the ride. That idea that they wouldn't just sell a car to anybody, that they made you buy their, what they don't want to call entry-level cars, in order to sort of climb the ladder and earn the right to be able to purchase one of the more special vehicles. That always sort of pissed me off. Like, that's just not my style. I'm not a country club guy. I'm not a yacht club guy. I don't care for that type of forced exclusivity or making it feel like there's the Ferrari people and then there's the common people below. So I think that's part of it. You know, when I moved to Seattle, I met some really cool people, and my prior experiences with Ferrari at dealerships or any of their representatives, they were always kind of dicks. They never wanted to really interact with you. They never wanted to talk about anything but their cars. They never wanted to compare their cars to other makes. The things that all of us as car enthusiasts want to do. That's how we participate in this activity. We say, how does this compare to this? What do you like for this sort of use versus this sort of use? And in the Ferrari world, it was feeling like there's only one proper answer to any question, and it's always Ferrari. And this is well before they had their SUV or some of their more practical cars, if you can call them that. And so when I got up to Seattle, I started interacting with the Ferrari dealership next to where I stored some cars, because they made their wash bay available to some of us, and they would help get some cars washed, which was nice of them, and they would, do a decent job on it. But and it was convenient. But the thing I realized is dealing with the service folks were super down to earth. They were really nice, and I got to be friendly with them, like legitimately friends with several of the people working at Ferrari. And it wasn't the front of house people, it wasn't the executive management, it wasn't the salespeople.
Yeah.
It was all the service people, it was the receptionist, it was people working there, making the thing go, helping to take care of the cars, the people who really knew what these cars were inside and out about. And they had encouraged me over and over again to try out a few different models, and I was sort of loath to do it because of that experience I've had previously with these cars. So one day, I was at a track day out at the Ridge Motorsports Park in Shelton, Washington, just outside Seattle. We've talked about that in a prior episode when we were talking about...
Very cool looking track.
Yeah, about other American racetracks outside California. Definitely worth a drive. And my friend Tom shows up in this very pretty dark blue Pista.
That's
with gold
cool.
wheels on it. Yeah, and he showed up to the track day with it, and he was just screaming and having a great time and going really fast in this thing. I was out there, I think, in like a Formula 3 car, so I was still maybe getting around the laps a little faster. But when it came to the straightaway, I had nothing on this guy. He was going fast, and he hadn't even had the car that long. He just got in it. It seemed pretty plug and play. So he said to me, "Hey, Todd, why don't you drive my car?" And I don't know, I'm a little sort of shy about driving other people's cars. I certainly don't want to do anything wrong with them.
Right.
And I was just having in the back of my mind, like, I can't drive them the way I would drive my own cars on the track. It's going to be sort of a reserved experience. But something just kicked in me and said, I got to drive that car. I got to see what it's about. My friend Tom is just having a laughing, screaming riot getting out of the thing and is encouraging me very strongly to try it out. So I said, well, I'll go and do a couple laps. What could it hurt? So I go out and I do a couple laps in this car, and immediately it felt really intuitive. It felt comfortable on track. I'm not a huge GT car guy on track. Most of my experience is in Formula cars and sports prototypes and things like that. I've driven GT cars on track, just they feel so heavy to me. The roll center, the rotation, the balancing from one side to the other through the twists and turns, it's just kind of slow compared to that instant response you get in some of those race cars. So yeah. I wasn't really expecting any kind of instant gratification like that in this car, but as soon as I got on the gas, that thing just took off. It had that linear acceleration. It got me down the long straightaway at the Ridge damn quickly. And then the real test was in that first turn into turn one, where I had to get on the brakes hard and sort of trail brake into this area, getting ready to go up a hill up to turn two. And the car felt really confident. I was a little worried. I didn't want to over push it or anything, so I wasn't going 10/10. But the car delivered. It really was rewarding on track. And this car, he drove to the racetrack, he drove it on the track all day, and he drove it home. So I was really impressed with the fact that it was so versatile, and you could actually use it kind of all out on the track the way I would with my GT2 RS, but for example.
No, I'm surprised, that not all roads are perfect here in Marin and Sonoma County. This does a pretty good job on rough roads.
Yeah.
This isn't terrible. It does shake you up, right? This isn't a luxury car.
No, even in this race mode, let me go back to sport and see if we feel any difference in the suspension. I don't feel anything noticeable. It's still bumpy.
There is a bumpy road mode, right?
There
is that
is.
What that little suspension icon
Yeah.
is?
So some of the UI in Ferraris, they just don't really get right, like this user interface, this user experience. So on the steering wheel, there's a couple of buttons. One is a picture of a shock. Now, in most cars that we know, when there's a little button that you can press with a shock on it, that stiffens the suspension. I know on all the
You would expect it to.
That's the way it does it, right? The DSC button on the BMW, right? That stiffens up the ride. It takes away some of the stability control. You get the full experience.
Right.
In this car, if you press the shock button, the suspension button, it goes into what's called bumpy road mode. Well, that's not available to you in race mode, so you have to go down to sport mode to get that. Then you click and you go into bumpy road mode, and then all of a sudden, oh hey, the ride gets a little bit more compliant. And it does a pretty nice job of it. There's still a fair bit of a sporty feel to it, but it definitely dampens out some of those undulations and bumps and more sudden juddering that we were getting just a few minutes ago on the same road.
It's pretty funny how like Ferrari is like, no, all the time is sports suspension. Only when you want it will it go softer. Where like any other car is, the baseline is soft suspension. Then it can go harder, stiffer if you want it.
Yeah, other credit to this car. Ferrari was sort of famous for coming up with this thing they call the Manettino, their fancy Italian name for the little switch. It's a knob that you can turn on the steering wheel to change through the different drive modes. So you have wet mode, sport mode, track mode, then you have CT off, which is your traction control, and then ESC off, which is your electronic stability control. So those are the 5 levels you get. And we're not going to mess with any of that traction control or ESC mode off stuff here today, just cruising around on the road. That's stuff you save for the racetrack.
I was going to say, with this much power, I'll take the electronics.
Yeah, I think they're there to do something for you. And again, this is a very electronic experience, right? The engine timing, the throttle mappings, the suspension control, it's all done with electronics, right? This is not an analog car. There's more feel than even some of the more modern Ferraris have, and I appreciate that. There's none of that haptic controls on the steering wheel or touchscreen kind of nonsense. There's no extra screens in this car like some. But it's still a balance. It's still a trade-off to be made from a real pure analog experience like you get in that 360 versus what you're getting in a 488.
I think this was kind of like the peak of electronics adding, not taking away, where they were trying to utilize electronics and turbos and things like that to add to the driver's experience as much as possible, where nowadays the involvement of electronics in vehicles, hybrid systems, turbos, everything like that is taking more and more away.
One of the things that's nice as a creature comfort, speaking about electronics though, is there's not only tire pressure sensors, like a lot of cars have that now, they'll tell you what the pressures are of your 4 individual tires. It has temperature sensors. So I can see as my tires get up to temp, that gives me confidence to know, like, okay, now it's time I can get on it a little bit more. Or, all right, I've been driving around in this sort of sport mode for a little while. Now I'm comfortable getting into track mode because I know I have a bit more grip from our tire. So that's actually a really nice feature and something I'd happily retrofit to some older analog style cars.
That's pretty cool. That's race car stuff.
It is for sure.
Let's get some Ferrari ASMR next 5 minutes.
Bicycles. That was a little more dramatic.
I was gonna say, the shifts, you could feel like they're actually slapping that next gear. You could feel it jamming in that next gear on the downshift, on the upshift. Every once in a while you get kind of a little crack from that exhaust. But for the most part, it is kind of subtle. It is just very like executionary, which is interesting because like that sort of just precision execution you would expect more from like German sports cars like Porsches. Not necessarily Ferraris. You'd think they'd be a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more, not inconsistent, right?
Absolutely.
But something else going on where like the GT2 in comparison, which we'll do one of these drives with the GT2 as well, that one's a little bit more like dramatic, which you would expect that one to just be like precision delivery, just execution, but there's more pops and bangs and gurgles and all sorts of things going on.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. Don't get me wrong, this is an experience that'll wake you up and make sure you're paying attention when you're doing this stuff, otherwise you'll wind up in a bad state.
Yeah, this thing's ungodly fast. I mean, once those turbos kick in, it does not stop pulling from gear to gear to gear. And then getting into those corners, you can really feel this car take a nice set. You can really understand those tires digging into that pavement. There's a lot of confidence that you can get from behind the wheel to keep pushing this car to its abilities.
The turn signals are on the steering wheel in this car, and they're super unintuitive. So you drive around like, I'm that guy with the turn signal on. Yeah, that's me. There's some kick.
That little pop on the upshift was
Yeah,
really nice.
and I neglected to mention the shift lights on the steering wheel because I've been keeping it pretty tame along the way. But once you get into the revs, there's LED shift lights built into the steering wheel. I'm not sure how necessary that is for the street car, but it is called the Pista.
Yes. And the thing is, like, the tone from the engine, it's not bad. It does sound good. Could it sound better? Yes, absolutely. I think it's kind of a single tone. Like, it's not multi-dimensional like you would want an exotic motor to sound.
That's true. You know, I feel like I came in a little cold on the car, and now that I'm out here driving it, I'm like, oh, well, this is actually pretty great.
Once you start getting on, you're like, I get it now. I understand.
How quickly we forget.
It's a reminder for everyone of, go drive your cars. Remember why you bought them in the first place and enjoy them on the road responsibly, of course, right? Obey all local speed limits and signage, but go for a nice drive. If it's nice out, good weather, sun's shining, go out, enjoy it, enjoy your vehicle.
You kind of use it or lose it too. A lot of these cars, if you don't use them, they just rot. They're never as good as if they're well oiled and continually used. I guess one of the reasons I've been feeling kind of down about this car is that Ferrari experience of being out there and people look at you like, well, like you're a Ferrari guy. You know what I mean? It's
You're that a-hole in a Ferrari.
yeah, like you just think they're better than other people, and the expectations they have of you are just sort of superimposed on you because of this stereotype, which, let's face it, there is some root of truth in a lot of stereotypes.
But I think there's cool Ferrari people.
Oh, absolutely, no question. I mean, my buddy who lent me his just to go rip around on the racetrack was evidence of that, if I ever heard of any. And my good friends who worked at Ferrari of Seattle are also super cool people and nice people and down-to-earth, genuinely good people. So you can't paint anything with too broad a brush. I think that's the lesson to be taken here.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna need to find a gas station. This thing is not exactly thrifty with the consumption of fuel. And I thought we had a little bit more range than it looks like we're going to. Maybe being in race mode is part of that. A little bit of squeal from the brakes, but they are ceramic, so you have to get them up to temp. And let's just say we haven't been braking all that much.
Don't need to when your car handles so good.
Yeah, it is a really well handling machine. I like the look of the car from the outside, but one really nice feature from the inside is the arches over the wheels. They sort of have this flare to them, which helps you center the car on the road. That sounds like a funny thing. Like, obviously, you know where the center of the car is on the road, but having that visual indicator reminds me of the older Porsches, like back to the 964 and a little bit on the 993, where those wheel arches are the two peripheral parts of the track. That's of the track of the car. That's the left wheel, that's the right wheel, and you know you're going to be centered between those. And again, that sounds kind of funny, but there's so many cars where the visibility is so poor over the front hood, the bonnet in the front, where finding kind of where you are relative to where the car is going and where the road is can be a little tricky. And this, they do it really right. Again, you know, kudos to the Italians on their design prowess.
So we've come off the twisties, off of the back roads, enjoying a lovely drive in the 488 Pista. We had some criticism, but I think we also talked about some really great points of this car is phenomenal and it performs excellent. And there's a lot of great things to talk about the 488 Pista. Some of those drawbacks, right, of just wanting maybe a little bit more of an analog experience, but maybe that's just our style, right? What we like from a driver's car.
Yeah, and everybody knows it's way more fun to talk smack about stuff than just wax poetic about how great everything is, you know? And you look at a car like this, and obviously there's a lot of things about it that are attractive and well done. And again, that's why it's here now for us to drive and talk about. But there are definitely criticisms to be had, and we want to make sure that's shared with folks who maybe haven't had a chance or might not have the opportunity to be in a car like this. It is a really fortunate opportunity that we have to have this experience in the first place, so I don't want to take that for granted. But not everything's all rosy. You have to keep that in mind. Not everything's as good as it might look on the wrapper.
It's still not a bad day when you get to take your Ferrari out.
Oh, it's not at all.
Any last comments, last thoughts about the 488 Pista before we wrap this up?
You know, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what the passenger experience is. It's a little loud in here, stuff bangs around, but you know, again, that's to the nature of the car. That's a track car. It's not made to be sound deadened as much as some of the other models. I really enjoy the experience. The more I'm behind the wheel, the more it sort of lights me up and reminds me what it's all about. Being out away from the city center, you know, a lot of the driving I do is on the freeway.
Yeah.
And it's no fun driving really anything on the freeway, to be honest.
Right.
So having this experience out in the twisties, to really enjoy the countryside and the environment around us, to be able to use the car in a way it's designed to be used, that really lights me up. And I think that's something that this car is really good at doing. And again, you worry a little bit about what other people are doing because they're not always looking, they're on their phones or they're not very careful. This is not a car you drive while you're on your phone. I mean, not that you should drive any car while you're on the phone, let's be clear about it, but this isn't a car that you're in while you're being distracted by other more important matters. The most important matter here is driving this thing and getting all the experience and enjoyment you can out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very obvious that they created this car to be very driver focused. I don't have anything in front of me over here on the passenger side. I don't even have a screen or anything, right? It's not about me as the passenger. It's very much about the driver. The way that they set up their controls on the steering wheel, making everything very simplistic and within finger reach to be able to adjust anything that you might need to do, that you never have to take your hands off of the wheel. And like you're saying, it's just very much an engaging driving experience.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even have really a place to put a pair of glasses on your side. There's no glove box. There's a tiny little cutout in the side of the door that, you know, might fit some paper or something like that. But that's it. But again, what'd you buy this car for? It wasn't to be a storage thing.
Right. You're buying this to go drive, and it does that very, very well.
Let's navigate off to some gas, shall we?
So to close it out, this has been a up to temp in the Ferrari 488 Pista. Thanks for the ride, Todd.
No problem. Well, this is only part one. We got to pull over. You can get behind the wheel on this thing and tell us what you think.
Sounds good to me. We'll
Let's
do
do
that
it.
next.
But first, gas.
And thanks for listening. This has been Cold Start.
Thanks, Alice.
Thanks, Todd.